Hello everyone, welcome to the Smashi Business Show. Today is Tuesday, 4th of February. I am Abdul Majid Awan and
I'm Richard Fitzgerald. Good morning, everyone.
And today's top headlines are very interesting. So we have a $11 trillion assets under management giant BlackRock. They're exploring plans to establish an office in Kuwait. Apart from that, Abu Dhabi's Taziz, which is a combination between ADNOC and ADQ. ADNOC is the oil giant and ADQ is one of the sovereign wealth funds in Abu Dhabi. They have awarded a $1.7 billion contract for UAE's first methanol plant. And apart from that, Meta has officially launched its AI assistant, Meta AI, in the MENA region. So we'll talk about all of that, but first of all, let's ask Rich, how did you find the Tawfiq Rehde interview? What did you find anything like enlightening from it?
Tawfiq is an excellent communicator, and he's a good business person who's built something, a unicorn in a way, out of Brands for Less. They had a good transaction last year. Very impressive guy, a very charming guy. Obviously, he spoke at SEF, Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival, at the weekend. And in the exclusive interview on Smashi Business, he used some language that Smashi Business tends to use, is that, our tagline is for the driven, the dreamers, the doers. And he did say that, this place, UAE, is for the dreamers. Yeah. And I think that's, it is easy to say, that's a running theme in all entrepreneurship and startup places, but it's not everywhere. There are countries in the world where, startups isn't a thriving place. I saw there was a report recently from Syria about startup environment. I know there's a Palestinian for tech set up, and there's lots of different things happening in the region, but definitely the UAE captures that sort of American dream, what used to be. And I love that, and I do think that we are, especially in the UAE, and particularly, I do think there is this sort of feeling of, come here for aspirational and for living your dreams, much as the draw for immigrants generations gone by that the US had held, and now we've got it here.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that I found from him was, he said that I would invest in a startup, or people like me, they want a strong personality, a strong entrepreneurship personality.
I don't know
They don't
about
just
that.
want a product.
I like him. I heard the quote, but I don't know about that. Like I invest, and but I think, but I'm more so an entrepreneur, and I think it's so hard to have one rule of thumb of whether it's an entrepreneur or a personality, because I've invested in great personalities, great fighters, but they can't run a business. And and they're too good at pivoting. They're too good at sort of coming up with ideas and not staying the course and delivering. And sometimes what I feel about this is that sometimes entrepreneurs aren't good investors, just like sometimes football players aren't good managers.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very novice investor, but sometimes I end up on board calls, and I hear VCs or PE people speaking, and then I realize, that's why they do that, and that's why I do the day-to-day running of a business. I do think there's a difference, and often a wider point, Majid, is when an entrepreneur sort of strikes gold and makes a few million in their late 20s, early 30s, and suddenly they start being angel investors. And I think it's great. I think it's great when when people do PE, when people get into that. But I don't know if it's. I think they need to know that they're doing something else. And I think sleeves rolled up, skin in the game, working on the product is different to being an investor. And it's a similar thesis and advice, as Warren Buffett would say, the best investment you'll ever make is yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for entrepreneurs to invest in themselves. But going back to the point, he's obviously right to a degree in terms of, the personality. You invest in the person, it doesn't really matter about the idea. If you get the right person, if they stick the course, it's, not everyone with the big personality sticks the course. Again, going back to Warren Buffett, he was a great picker of companies. As much as he read their reports in detail, and that's what he does. He doesn't have a smartphone, barely uses the internet, so he goes through all these reports. But as much as he does that, he also backs a good manager. And his famous picks over the years is that the quiet, unassuming CEOs are the better operators in times, not just the glamorous public profile people. But obviously, Tufik is good at both because of the success and the bottom line that Brands for Less have done.
And I think he was speaking from experience because he made a brand for himself on social media, and then everyone was like, and to be honest, I think some of the value that was later added to Brands for Less, everyone knew about the brand like 10 years ago when they started, like 20 years ago, but he added an extra flavor to it, like going to the mall on ground, giving $200 or 200 dirhams for if you could solve a riddle. So he added something, but I think he's talking from his own experience. And you're right, I guess, that depends on the case.
And PR is so important in retail. You know, he's a retailer, and it's retail, and it's so important. Yeah. And there's an intrinsic value that's added, incremental value that's added with that personal brand, and I think he's a good mentor for people as well. Yeah. And you know, it's great that he's
nice guy.
Yeah, it's great that he's at these events as well. But yeah.
Okay, so moving on to one of the first topics, BlackRock has considered opening office in Kuwait to strengthen their Gulf presence, and this is the report that came by Bloomberg. They've quoted sources which are close to the matter, but they haven't named them because all the discussions are private and secret right now. But Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, he recently visited on Monday Kuwait, and he met with the ruling Emir Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmed Al Sabah and Crown Prince Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Sabah. And this was obviously reported by Kuna, which is the state-run news agency of Kuwait. And these guys are thinking of opening an office in Kuwait. The interesting thing, again, Rich, I think everyone is going to Dubai, everyone is going to Abu Dhabi, EDGM, everyone is aiming for DIFC, Riyadh, but Kuwait is an interesting pick out of Qatar, Oman, Bahrain, all the big countries that we have, even Egypt to an extent.
Yeah, Kuwait has a history in the sort of Borsa. It was the original Borsa of the region, and so to speak, and it's got an interesting relation to capital and investment. Some of the best bankers in the region that I've spoken to, you know, a gentleman who works for Goldman Sachs is Kuwaiti. I've spoken to other people there. They've got big investment areas. You know, they have KIPCO, which own OSN. They've got different. They're strong in oil and gas and different types of medicinal gas companies, and you know, as on top of obviously the oil and the history, and then their links to the U.S. going way back to the Gulf War. There's a street named after the George Bush Sr. in Kuwait. So there's a lot of history there, and I was interested to read that Larry Fink. You know, the $1 trillion Kuwaiti sovereign wealth fund is an investment in BlackRock, and Larry Fink would go there to nurture that client at least once a year. So it goes under the radar, but it's not that much of a shock when you read between the lines. The fact that they're opening an office is very interesting. You know, Larry Fink speaks at the FII every year. He's on the opening panel, that sort of plenary panel in FII every year with His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan and a few others, and he's obviously very prominent. But just, you know, people need to, you know, I guess, looking at how powerful the companies like BlackRock are, they own a lot of assets, and a lot of, you know, a lot of investments are linked to them, such as investments in the US, right, like 401ks, and a lot of people's pensions are linked to what BlackRock do, and in this case, sovereign wealth funds also invest in them. So, you know, when we hear of investments from Saudi into the US, sometimes it is this type of, do you put your money into an investment vehicle for the US? I guess what the irony here is the sovereign wealth funds are almost trying to replicate that in this part of the world. But I think it's a sign of good trade. Like, you know, you don't want to just, and you don't want all the money just to stay here. It's good that that money from this region invests in other things, and vice versa. And I think it's great that he's been on a plane a lot to this region. I think that counts for me at least 3 times since November, if we count FII Abu Dhabi, and, you know, perhaps maybe on holiday as well. And here, obviously, working in Kuwait, so it's good to see.
Yeah, I've seen that with BlackRock. It's a common phrase in the market that wherever BlackRock goes, you should go, because if they're moving into a market, it shows that they have confidence in the market, and the whole world will now look at that. So if they're going to DIFC, they already have an office. ADGM, they got the license, but they're figuring out the later details, and soon they'll open there. Riyadh, they have already an office. Tel Aviv, they have an office. That's interesting. That was interesting for me. But recently, you talked about FII 8MBA.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it. I don't know about Tel Aviv, because I think that part of the world now is just declining. You know, it's just they've just made the wrong decisions with trade and everything, and with global economics and investment. It just reminds me of Eastern Europe after the Balkans. It's just going to take a while to get that. So I think he's smarter to open DIFC in Kuwait and Riyadh. I think there's future uplift here. But unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
So apart from that, there's another $1 billion news that we have, and the UAE is getting its first methanol plant, and it's very important because of two facts. When methanol is a sustainability alternative to oil and gas, and two, they've given the contract to Samsung E&A. It's a very big company, and they have been given the contract by Taziz, which is a company which was made by ADQ and ADNOC, as I said in the start of the show. So ADNOC coming into this play is the main idea, because ADNOC is trying to move away from their oil and gas business, which is like their biggest, I guess 90% of their business. We recently did a report that they're also going into the petrol station real estate. They're opening more shops, selling more coffee and retail stuff. So they're building everything around now on non-oil investments. And methanol plant, 1.7 billion contract to build it, will be developed by 2028. It's a very good alternative gas. And I think UAE, the sustainability year, we saw 2023, 2024 as sustainability year, but it's still going on. It's just it's not announced.
It's fascinating. I think partnerships are so interesting. I think what JVs and setting up vehicles like this, Taziz, what does Taziz mean? But basically setting up these vehicles is interesting. And also bets on different types of gases work as well. Like, people didn't really pay attention 20 years ago when Qatar were making bets on like liquid nitrogen gas. And then it became one of the main reasons why it's such a profitable, such a lucrative, such a wealthy nation. And I think things like this are super interesting. And also it goes back to the point about plants, manufacturing, energy. The more investments in these areas, and I really like the fact that it's not that far away as well.
So methanol is a versatile chemical, a wide range of applications, serving as feedstock for producing formaldehyde, a lot of assets which are mainly used for building plastics, but it's utilized as a fuel and energy source, particularly in the transportation sector. So it's like a sustainable alternative. And we'll see what happens with this as soon as the plant starts. There's a number, it says the global methanol market is projected to reach $38 billion by 2028. And this plant specifically has an output of 1.8 million tons of methanol. That's a lot as soon as it starts working in 2028. So as soon as we get more updates and everything, we'll give it to you, obviously, on Smashi Business.
And it's two global brands, isn't it? Samsung and E&A.
Samsung. So ADNOC and ADQ, one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds, ADQ, again chaired by Sheikh Tanoon. You can't talk about anything Abu Dhabi without talking about him. He is the main guy of Abu Dhabi. He's the main His Excellency right now. He's been meeting with great people. What's up with that? I think it's great that one of the leaders now, apart from the UAE president, has become prominent with other people as well. I just wanted to discuss that, like how important it is to have another person. We have the prince. We have the succession.
It's also the respect that the Western world is now showing to Arab business people and Arab leaders. I really like it. There was a photo with one of the crown princes in Dubai yesterday and a German representative. I should have the details, but it just. I think the tables have turned a bit in the last 100 years. I'm listening to a book at the moment all about negotiations around after the First World War. And there was King Faisal of Syria initially at the time, Saudi, and then he was in Paris. And they were just never really welcome to the negotiation table. It was always the French, at the time, leaders like, Wilson and Clemenceau and Lloyd George, and at that time, 100 years ago. But basically, the Arabs were never fully welcome. And now what's really impressive when these photos go out, it's kind of like, well, we're hosting, the majlises are nice. It's very impressive for these esteemed people in their countries to come for important meetings. And then what's also gets on the back of it is huge contracts get dished out. Like if Samsung is signing, Samsung are part of a $1.7 billion contract. That's not insignificant to them, and in Korea or wherever, that's not insignificant that they're winning a huge contract in the UAE. So I think this is a really, it's business through capitalism. It's diplomacy and politics through capitalism. I think it's really impressive.
And the Arab leaders, we sent out a picture of His Highness Sheikh Hamdan. That was like very interesting. Just hosting the Amazon CEO casually in a cafe. Before that, Sheikh Tanoon met him. Everyone. So we've seen whoever comes to the region, he meets there. Yeah. So that's a great part, that there's no security issue. They can just sit in a cafe and have a casual talk.
It turned out that we asked the people who sent us. They sent us exclusively to Love and Dubai and Smashi Business. From the government, that we asked them which restaurant, and they said we better not say. And then a few days later, the restaurant shared a photo of San Sheikh Tam, who always politely allows a photo of him with the chef, because it's really endorsement of the culinary scene as well. But it's an Australian grill house on Jumeirah Road if anyone wants to go for a good steak. But good enough for Sheikh Hamdan and good enough for the CEO of Amazon.
And lastly, and quickly, to be honest, Meta has officially launched its AI assistant, Meta AI, in the MENA region. The most important thing about this is that Arabic language has been integrated into Meta AI now. So on your WhatsApp, on Messenger, and on other platforms, all the other Meta platforms, you can now use Meta AI officially in the MENA region. So the first rollout countries are UAE, Saudi Arabia, all the big players, obviously. And then eventually it will be rolled out to Jordan, Iraq, and all the region as well. So it's interesting that Meta took some time to come to this region. Maybe they were just like planning the Arabic part and then coming back.
Yeah.
They announced it around 2023. That's what I know.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say this region over others. I mean, there's some random agent places that, for no strategic reason, they just like to test.
Yeah.
And there's billions and billions of users. They have billions of apps, and I think mass rollouts is probably something that a developer will tell us more about. But what I find funny about this is the Meta came at a time where they changed the Facebook holding company, and it was linked to Metaverse. And now they're using Meta as Meta AI, which is just interesting, like, because it's a Metaverse term that they've sort of tagged AI onto, and it sounds perfect. It sounds like, oh yeah, obviously it would be called Meta AI. Why wouldn't it? But it's not really. They're two different, because we heard recently in their earnings report how many billions they spent on their Meta division and how much money it's losing, and now they're kind of spinning it into AI. The AI thing's fascinating. I mean, we could talk at length. We could talk at length about AI, but I've seen it here on my. If I see the Smashi TV, right? I've seen it on Instagram, but I haven't yet got it on my WhatsApp, and I've had it on my Instagram for a while. But I don't think people know the intuitiveness of it. So it's basically ChatGPT. So Ask Meta or Search AI. It's ChatGPT, and at the top when you prompt, it says used car buying tips. You click on that, and it gives you, something went wrong. Meta's demo isn't working. So my name is Meta AI, and I just clicked on the prompt, which is about sports car reels. So now it gives me lots of reels about sports cars. So it's using the data in the platform, and it's a search engine per se. I think it's hugely interesting that Meta are doing this. Who knows what space this is going to go to. Us in the media world are watching it closely, both in terms of telling the consumers what's happening, but in terms of like where content is going as well.
Yeah, and I think TikTok search was the greatest.
Yeah.
Instagram search is very bad. With Meta AI, maybe it gets better, because if you even misplace one period here and there, you won't find the account on Instagram. So I think with this, it will become better.
Yeah, so Meta, it's powered by Llama, and this version is called 3.2, but Llama is their large language LLM model. Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for today. Few quick things. Richard talked about a report. Startup Syria has published the Rising from the Rubble report, which provides an overview of the startup ecosystem in Syria. You can find the story soon on our all social platforms. We're working on it. And apart from that, Al Abtur Group is eyeing IPO for hospitality. We talked about that. But there's another interesting Bloomberg report that we'll be working on. So please go on our socials and follow us on Instagram, now with Meta AI, Facebook. We have a WhatsApp channel. You can join that. All our social channels, we have the link to join our WhatsApp channel. We have a newsletter which goes out every day at 6:30 a.m. You can find the link to subscribe to it as well. Apart from that, catch us every day from Monday to Friday on all video and audio platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which is now merged with Google Music. So there, and Anghami, Spotify, wherever you can find us, wherever you listen or watch your stuff, just go write Smashi Business and you'll get.
And send us your stories, send us your news rounds, your funding announcements, even if you're raising investments, send us your stories. We'll cover, we got a lot of good feedback at SEF over the weekend. People love the type of angles and the stories that we're doing. So, and it's an exciting month. As Majid said, we'll be present at Leap in Riyadh from Sunday next week, then quickly followed by a STEP conference in Dubai the week after. I should shout out, and then I'll remember one, and then at the end of the month we'll be in Web Summit in Qatar. But this week we're actually present in Cairo at Rise Up AI. Rise Up AI is a spin-off event of the bigger Rise Up conference that happens later in the year. So they have a smaller AI-only event taking place in Cairo this week. So if you're listening in Egypt, or if you happen to be traveling on business or whatever to Egypt this week, there's an AI event taking place. Feel free to check it out.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Smashi Business Show, part of the Smashi Business production, which is part of the larger Augustus Media podcast network. As per my producer, we have 1.34 million listeners monthly. And if you're one of them, thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.